Hey, Myles here at Tactical Hyve, and in this week's Sports Sunday video, we're going to be bringing things back a little bit and talking about a topic that's going to be important for newer shooters. There's a lot of people getting into uspsa, ipsc, IDPA type of competitions, and knowing about the 180 rule is going to be very important. So if you're interested, stay tuned. A few months ago, we released a video where part of that video we talked about the 180, and this is with a video with a Grandmaster shooter, John Bautista, where whenever you are facing a stage, a course of fire, okay, wherever you are at and you're facing down range, you have to imagine there's a line drawn right through your body here, and you cannot point your muzzle past that line. So basically, from here on, this 180 degrees, you're allowed to point your muzzle, but nothing past that. You do not want to point your gun at any spectators or anyone uprange. So they have that 180 rule. So even if I step forward, even if I step back, wherever I'm facing, where the course of fire is, I can't pass that 180. So in this video, I want to share just 3 tips that you can consider that will help you make sure you're not violating the 180, but also allow you to better position your pistol so that you can perform better, potentially. The first tip about dealing with the 180 is really for beginners who have absolutely no clue what to do with their firearm when they're moving from position to position. And we're going to take 2 main directions, moving right and left. So let's say you are my first target or a series of targets in this area. After engaging these targets, I need to move to my right. And if I'm a right-handed shooter, some people may lift their gun up, which is nothing necessarily wrong, but you might break that 180. So if I was running here, I might break that 180 by accident, okay? And you may learn low ready from the tactical space, defensive space, but it may not be as effective or efficient when it comes to competition, because remember, we want to cut down or shave as much time as possible in competition. So here, what will happen is if I'm engaging targets here, one of the most common ways, if I'm moving to the right to keep my gun down range so that I don't break the 180, is to keep my gun or just to bend my arm as I move to the right, just like this. It could be low, it could be high, it doesn't really matter because now it's in a safe direction. So I'm moving from left to right, my muzzle stays down range, does not break the 180. If I was a left-handed shooter going from right to left, so the same thing, I'm engaging targets here, I'm just going to let my arm relax, keep the muzzle down range as I move from right to left, okay? So that is a very common way to position your gun as you're moving. Now, if I am moving from now the opposite direction, now from right to left, and I'm a right-handed shooter, what we are going to do is this. So this is a very common way. After I engage targets here, I'm just going to relax my arm, keep it pointed down range, and run this way, okay, to the left. All right. Vice versa, if I'm left-handed, all you're going to do is you're going to take shots here. If I'm moving from left to right, I'm going to relax my hand and just move to the right. Okay. I know this is a very fundamental topic, but for those getting into shooting, I know this is something that is never really explained to you. You might see people do that, but hopefully this video is helpful. So right to left, it's very easy. We are just relaxing our arm, making sure that our muzzle is downrange. I will add to this because those techniques also apply if you are moving backwards. So I'm going to get a little closer here. If I had to move to my right or turn to my right while moving backwards, okay, notice what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn my hips to move backwards, okay, and keep my muzzle downrange. So I might not even be looking at you, okay, at this camera. I'm looking at where I'm going, and then keeping my gun downrange. My hips are oriented towards where I want to go, but my gun is downrange. Then I can turn and engage whenever I need to. If I need to move backwards, but I need to turn to my left, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn to my left, and my gun, you can place your gun anywhere here. My hips are oriented where I want to go. I'm looking at where I want to go. And then ultimately when I get into the position, I'm going to turn, keeping my muzzle downrange, and now I can engage targets. So those 2 positions where you are bending or turning into your arm and allowing your arm to face down range is going to be typically used when you're turning to your strong side. Then when you're turning to your support side, you're typically just going to relax that arm and keep that muzzle down range. Now that we got that out of the way, how can we make those movements a little bit more efficient? So if we are moving let's say to our right. I discussed this already. For a right-handed shooter, you're turning to your right. For a left-handed shooter, you're moving to your left, okay, if you are moving in that direction. Here, what we want to do, typically speaking, this is not, black and white. Some shooters will do this, some shooters won't really care. But keeping your gun up close to your eye level, all right, eye level, is going to save you some time and keep your sights where you can see them in your periphery. Okay, this is debatable, but this is a technique I want to share with you, where again, maybe I'm engaging targets here, I move over here, as I turn to engage more targets, my sights are already lined up with my eye, my gun is high here so I can save some time, and then present and engage targets. If I was left-handed, same thing. Instead of keeping down here, I'll keep it up here, so when it's about time to turn, I can see my sights in my periphery and then begin to engage sooner, all right? If we are moving the opposite direction now, so if you're a right-handed shooter and you're moving turning to your left, or a left-handed shooter and turning to your right, some will do this. So instead of keeping it low, they're again going to keep it up high or even up close this way, okay? I personally don't use that technique, but it's just something you should know about. So again, instead of keeping it down here, they might keep it up here. So once again, when they turn, their sights and that gun, that pistol, is already pretty much lined up with their eyes. That tip applies to pretty much any time you're moving as well, not just when you're turning. So for example, if I am running into position, maybe from right to left, notice where my gun is here, I'll keep it up here by my eye line. Now this is again just a technique. Some people, situation will dictate what you're going to be doing, but here, instead of running this way to the position, some shooters will keep their gun up, run this way, so that again, their sights, their gun, it's already pretty much lined up with their eyes. And then shooters do not have to wait to bring their gun up to their line of sight, essentially saving, carving out some time. Again, it can be debatable, and there are a lot of shooters who will use both techniques interchangeably. But again, what's something to consider where you want to run around with your gun high up with your line of sight. The third and final tip when it comes to not breaking the 180 rule has to do with reloads. In the tactical space, you're going to see a lot of people reload. This is nothing wrong with this, but in competition, it could lend itself to breaking the 180 rule. So notice, a lot of people learn how to reload by bringing their gun in their workspace just like this. It puts the muzzle in a safe direction, okay, so you're not pointing at anyone, and people will conduct their reloads from here. But notice, if we bring this into competition, so from here, I'm still safe. I haven't broken the 180. I need to move to the left to another starting position, a shooting position. I've just broken the 180 because now my muzzle is actually facing this way. Even though it's in the air in a safe direction, no one uprange is being flagged, it still breaks the 180. Okay, so in the tactical defensive world, that doesn't matter, but in the competition, it does, right? So what you need to do is you need to be very careful about this. So one thing you might need to adjust, which can also be used in the tactical defensive world as well, is when you do a reload, okay, when you're releasing your mag, you don't necessarily have to bring it like this, even though you may have learned this way. You can actually use gravity. So notice, I'm facing this way, downrange, okay, and I can't bring my muzzle past the 180. So instead of doing this, I might release my mag here, keeping my gun, notice how it's pretty much vertical, okay? I'm not doing this, I'm doing this here, keeping my gun up just like this, all right? So I'm using gravity to also lend itself, or to assist in dropping the mag, okay? From here, you're keeping the gun in the safe direction. You do not have to bring it here to release the mag, okay? So notice it's actually easier because, once again, gravity is helping me. So if I'm shooting, I release the mag. From here, I'm keeping my gun in a safe direction, okay? So that is the first thing, is to understand where your gun is pointing when you're doing the reload, especially if you come from the tactical defensive space. Depending on if you're a righty or a lefty, if I was moving to my right and I'm used to that reload style, then it's not a big deal because my gun is pointing downrange. But if I'm moving from right to left, then I will flag someone or break the 180. If I'm a left-handed shooter, it's just the opposite. So you have to consider that. So when it comes to reloads, as it pertains to the 180, the biggest issue for right-handed shooters is when you're moving from right to left. For left-handed shooters, it's when you're moving from left to right and you need to conduct a reload, because the chance of flagging is increased. So there's a technique that you can do to help alleviate that as well, even if you do this, okay? Just imagine if I needed to reload, I'm engaging some targets over here, okay? And then I need to conduct a reload as I move to the next position. if I do this right here, so I'm shooting targets and I conduct the reload, I might break the 180. So the follow-on tip here is I'm going to engage my targets here, keep my gun up as we just talked about. Okay, so I would engage my targets, release my mag, keep my gun up. I'm going to grab my mag and notice how my muzzle is still downrange, and then I conduct the reload as I get into my final position. I do not do it in the middle here because after I'm engaging, I do not do the reload right away because I might be tempted to do this. So once again, I'll shoot, release the mag, get into position, reload, and then break my shots. By doing that, you're gonna help eliminate the possibility of you breaking that 180 because your muzzle is downrange the entire time and you're conducting your reload at the very end. So there you guys have it. 3, I think maybe it was even 4 tips that'll help you not break the 180 rule. For beginners, it's extremely important. You want to be safe, and as you're shooting and having fun and going fast, one of the things that goes out the window quickly is safety habits. But you want to ensure that you're able to do this so that you can be safe. But these tips that I shared will also help you be more efficient and effective. For example, keeping that gun up with your line of sight so that you don't have to wait as long to acquire your sights. So give those techniques a try. Again, there's lots of ways. These are just common ways that are done, but give them a try and I think that you'll be more safe and you'll see that your performance increases. If you guys liked the video, please give us a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next week.